From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas for Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have Todd Jones on for our bi-weekly segment on copywriting with Todd Jones. And today's discussion is, what is copywriting? Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This podcast is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency that can help protect your WordPress website today. Go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and see what we can do to help you protect your business investment. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Todd Jones, with our segment Copywriting with Todd Jones. And this is really our first episode. We did an intro a couple weeks ago. Hey, Todd, thanks for joining me again.
Copywriting with Todd E. Jones. Okay.
That's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's
So-
like LA Knight, but Todd E. Jones.
So I think of series like this as a series of building blocks. And one of the things we talked about in the intro was, what is really copywriting and what does that mean? Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So like I said in the intro, people in the copywriting community can get into debate about this. Well, first of all, let me tell you what I think copywriting is, okay? And not everybody's going to agree with this, but I think for business purposes, it's fine. Copywriting is a general term used to refer to written content for business purposes. So you're nurturing a lead, you're persuading a lead, or you're selling a lead. That is the way I define copyright. Now, some people who are more on the sales persuasion side of copywriting will create a distinction between that and what we like to call content writing, or in the content market, a lot of blog posts and that kind of thing. I don't do that so much for one reason. There's a blurring of lines between the two, in my opinion. Now, you need to have some what I would call copywriting skills to be a better content writer. If you don't have those skills, you're going to be meh or average content writer. That's my opinion. So I don't differentiate between the two, but I understand why some do. And typically when it comes to value in terms of what people get paid, writers, they tend to get paid more because they're what they say closer to the bottom of the funnel, closer to the sale. So they tend to pay web copywriters, email copywriters, funnel copywriters, those types of people, landing page, sales page copywriters. They tend to pay them more money because they are closer to the sale and have a bigger impact. Content writers usually don't get paid as much, but I think they're extremely important. Both of them are extremely important. And so I don't want to make the distinction. I use copywriting as a general umbrella term for everything under copywriting. So I don't know if that helps or not. Then I have subsets underneath that. You want me to go through those?
Sure, please.
Okay. I'm going to start with direct response copywriting. Now, when I say direct response copywriting, before I started doing copywriting, I had no idea what that was. But many people remember the show Mad Men. And Mad Men was about Don Draper and his merry group of men and women who did mostly ad copywriting. That's what people think about. But I think direct response copywriting in general is usually, you and I have had this in our lifetime, but maybe not everybody has. You remember you get those mail pieces of mail that are basically formatted like a newsletter or a letter, but they're basically a sales letter or a sales newsletter. I know people who do that, who have had a very successful career doing that. So you write the sales letter, or the newsletter, and usually it's for financial products. A lot of times supplement type companies will use them as well. So it's very fascinating to me. And this to me is the precursor to what I believe referred to as conversion copywriting when she came on the scene about 14 years ago, doing conversion copywriting for software as a service companies. And she used direct response copywriting principles, the stuff you would get from Ogilvy and Dan Kennedy and those guys. You use those principles and apply them to website copywriting for landing pages, for web copy, your regular pages, those kinds of things. And which kind of took off, and she's kind of discipled a whole bunch of people now, and most of them are in the SaaS space. Also, she did a lot with email copywriting, and email copywriting is similar, only they're way shorter than those sales letters and newsletters we'd be getting in the mail. And sometimes they would be a sequence of 10, 12 emails or whatever. And if you write the web copy, you write the copy for the ad, because at this day and age, we still do ads. We just do them digitally, right? If you write the follow-up newsletters, you have become what they would call a funnel copywriter. You write something for every part of the funnel. So that is those are the more, I guess I won't say skilled copywriting, but the more sales oriented copywriting. You're really there to persuade. You're trying to move them closer to buying, making decisions, that kind of thing. Now, we'll go with script copywriting, which is not really my forte, but I know people again who have done script copywriting that's for video and audio. Again, way out of my comfort zone. I like to shoot from the hip a little bit more. And then you have advertising copywriting, which of course is what Mad Men did. You have sales page copywriting, which I've already talked about. You have website copywriting, which is essentially what you're doing is writing what I call the brand pages. That's what my friend Ann Smarty would call the brand pages. So your home page, your about page, probably your service page, and each service type you have, and then some brand type pages that you have on your website. And then you would have then there's a kind of a blurring there with what you might call SEO copywriting. To a degree, you have these, especially if you're a product company, a product business. You have a product. I have a laptop. I have a black laptop, I have a red laptop, and I have a green laptop, and each of them have different features. So you're writing a page for each one of those. It's very SEO driven. You're trying to get the right things in there. So that is one aspect of SEO copywriting, but it also is part landing page copywriting as well. So it's not just trying to get stuff in there for that. Then you have what I'm going to bring up the rear with, but it's probably one of my favorite parts of copywriting, the content marketing and the content writing. And again, there's a lot of overlap with some of these, actually, I think, even with SEO copywriting, because a lot of people took content writing and they called it SEO copywriting. And I think it was to leverage themselves and position themselves as more valuable than the average content writer, partially. So you have the content writer, and then there's a whole host of things we can talk about with that. I won't get into today, but content writing, you and I have been in the business long enough that we remember that what I said in a little article I wrote the other day, the secret sauce for companies 14 years ago was writing blog content. That was secret sauce. Because you draw Google and other search engines in, and they would rank your stuff higher. And then of course it became, what can I do to rank higher? And the purpose of content writing became, and this is a problem I think we have now, we've come at this crossroads, but it became only about ranking and getting higher in the rankings. Yep. And I think there's more of a purpose than that. including persuading people to take action. And there's a whole lot of things that content marketing, content writing can do. And it's changed a lot over the years. And if you remember, the other thing we have that's going on is more companies are online now, right? So there's more people. And now in the workforce across the globe, we have 4 generations that are in the workforce right now. They all see things differently, especially when it comes to content. You have baby boomers, you have Gen X, that's me. You have millennials, who is now starting to be, in the field for 10, 15 years. And you have Gen Z, and they all consume content differently. They all see it differently. 10 years ago, Mark Schaefer wrote an article called Content Shock, or it was about content shock. It was about this coming place where we were going to be, and he felt like it was happening then. And I think where we have all this content, just more content than there is people to read it. And we really have gotten there. Yeah, we would really have gotten there now. And people using AI to create content has only added to that content shock. So anyway, that's my spiel about copywriting. As you can see, I kind of mix all of it together. Again, my copyright friends would probably hiss at me for doing that. I use copywriting as a general term for all of these things, and then that's how I divide them up. There's a lot of overlap with all of them, I think. So there's my long answer.
And I would agree with you. It's interesting when you talk about the people that consume content, because you and I have talked about, I've been at a couple marketing seminars, one recently from the folks at Canada Post. For those who don't know, it's like the USPS in Canada. And they did a Gen Z, focused on Gen Z, because they're the up and comers. And the reality is Gen Z doesn't have the attention span that you and I do, Todd. Their attention spans are lower. It shows in content. It shows in relationships. They treat relationships, romantic relationships, like they're disposable. It's just really interesting looking at that generation, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you come, for every person, every business, when you're dealing with content or anything else, really, you come to a point where you're like, okay, do I create valuable content no matter how long it is, or do I cheapen the content so that Gen Z can, but the reality is, there's this as well. Gen Z, all of us will binge watch shows. Binge watching is a thing now. It wasn't 14 years ago, but now it's a thing, right? I binge watched, and by binge watch for me, that's like watching something once a day. I binge watched all the Narcos series on Netflix. First Narcos and Narcos Mexico. They were 3 seasons each. And for the most part, I watch one a day. Now, that binging for me, a lot of people will binge like overnight. I have watched a 4-episode series on Netflix before. That's about the most I'll do in one night. I'm not a big binge watcher, but we all binge watch something that's 30 minutes, an hour. And the reason we do, Rob, is because it's entertaining. It keeps our attention. That should be something we think about when we do our content. If your content's boring, it doesn't matter who they are. They're going to stop reading or watching.
I'm actually binge watching 2 shows right now. One is a show called Drive to Survive. For those who don't know, that's a Netflix series about Formula One. I'm about 3/4 of the way through.
I saw that, yeah.
And if you ever want to look at Formula One, it's a great way. And the other is my favorite TV show called The Voice. For those who don't know, The Voice is coming up next week. At the time of this release, actually, it will be already, the finale will have happened. And the way I consume The Voice is I tend to let 4 or 5 episodes build up on the CTV app.
Mm.
So CTV is a Canadian network. And then I go and watch all 5 episodes in one night or 2 nights and be done with it. So even I'm guilty.
Mhm.
And people say, how
Yeah.
can you binge watch? Is it any different than watching a 4-hour sporting event live? Or is it any
No.
different than reading a book for 2 hours? It's the same idea. It's just different
Yeah.
content.
Well, I'll give you a couple more examples of this. My mom, they come out with Farmer Wants a Wife.
Yeah.
My mom, I'm not going to tell you how old she is, but she's in her 70s. She grew up on a farm. Now, it was a small farm in the 50s. They don't make farms like this anymore. Really a family farm. They barely got by, that kind of thing. But she was extremely interested. So she not only watches the show, she watches podcasts on YouTube about the show, about the people on the show. I've never seen her do that before in my life. And it's like astonishing to me. And if she misses one, she'll go back and watch it on YouTube. So that's a good one. And then you and I both have been guilty of watching a WWE paid live event, right?
Yeah.
So WrestleMania, I sat down about 3 Saturdays ago and watched, maybe it's 2 Saturdays ago, and watched Backlash, which was in France. I had no intention of watching it. I knew it was in the middle of the day. I knew I was going to be doing stuff. And I thought, if I want to watch it, I'll go back and watch it later. Because you can. It's on the Peacock, right? It's on Peacock. I can go back and watch it later. But it just so happened I was there and it was starting and I was done with what I was doing. So I sit down and watch it. That's about a 3 or 4 hour event to
Yes, it
watch.
is.
And but then they got all this WWE content, World Wrestling Entertainment, in case you wonder what I'm talking about. They have all this WWE content on there. You can get lost in that. And I have done that before as well. Got lost in it.
It's a never-ending cycle. I
Yeah.
mean, Netflix just signed 2 big sports deals. One with
Oh,
the
yeah.
NFL to do NFL Sunday games starting this year,
Mhm.
and starting
Mhm.
next year, they've taken over Sunday afternoon baseball from
Yeah.
NBC is going. So that's
Well,
just the future. What
and
makes a
WWE too.
Yeah, of course,
Raw joined there. So
worldwide makes a good copywriter, Todd.
I oh man, I think you caught me off guard with that one. I think you got to be curious, investigative. Got to be somebody who spelunks, who will search and research. Um, you know, Joanna Weeb will say something like it's more science than art. I think she's right, but at the same time, I think we have let too much art get out of copywriting. I'd like to see more of it back in it. Um, but you got to be, I mean, I always say that there's 3 phases really to any kind of project. You can apply it across the board, but in copywriting, you have research, right? You start with research, then you have the strategy in the middle. Like then, based on your research, this is a strategy you're going to use, and then you have the execution. You got to be able to do all those things. So you got to be able to research. You got to be able to talk to people because I think they think that AI is going to shortcut research, and I just, I hesitate. I have a friend who's a great researcher for copywriting, and I want to ask her, but I'm afraid she's going to beat me up or something for asking her. But I'm like, just to get her take on this. But she teaches people how to do research for copywriting. And I mean, the temptation, especially when you're a larger business, is to use AI because there's all this data out there, right? But the data may not be your customers. You got to reach your customers.
Yep.
So the story I love to tell the most is my coffee shop owner, Scott. It's not just Scott. He trains his entire staff this way. You walk in, especially if you're a regular. Hi, Todd. You want a pour over today? You want your usual? I mean, that's how it is. He knows his customers. Hey, I know you had a baby last week. I mean, but you only get that with conversation and relationship. And of course, when you run a product that has 500, 600, 700,000 users, you can't do that. So if you're in a situation like that, you got to do actual research. That means surveys. That means getting on a call with somebody and asking questions. Not easy to do. A lot of people don't want to do it. Many of us are introverted. We sure don't want to do it. But you've got to be able to hear and understand people's story. So, the writing part is a skill that you can learn. And as Kaylee Moore said on Twitter the other day, or X, whatever we call it these days, there are lots of formulas out there. You can just fill in the blanks, and in a lot of cases that's true. You can just fill it. We all have our favorite copywriting formulas, right? And every copywriter does. And so you can, but you get the information, you build your insights, and then you use that, and you start using the formula to write stuff. So it's not always about writing the most poetic, although sometimes that comes into play. I think you've got to be flexible. You got to be willing to try something different, because the reality is, not just with a copywriter, but as a business, whatever your business you're in, unless you're in a category of one, you have oodles and oodles. I'll use that, oodles and oodles of competition. So for every web designer, there's 250 more. For whatever your business you're in, there's tons of you, and they all look the same. Somebody on LinkedIn today called it the lemonade stand principle. And I'm losing credit on this, unfortunately. I can't remember who said it, but it was really fascinating. You're on a street, and there's lemonade stands lined up and down the street. How's somebody gonna tell you apart? And when in the world of business, out, not lemonade stand wise, he talked about hanging out new banners and all that kind of stuff to attract people's attention. And that's what you would do for a lemonade stand. But for an average business, you've got to find what your competitive advantage, your competitive edge is, and lean into that, and build your brand on that. And so a copywriter should be able to help you do that if you'll let them work with you to find that competitive edge. And in this day and age, your differentiator, one of the best things you can use is actually your story. That's one of your best. There's some other things, I think, as well, in an age which is increasingly automated. I think your customer experience can be a huge advantage for you. And I have a friend who is probably the foremost expert on customer experience, and a lot of Brittany Hodak. She was on Shark Tank, and she's she's the CX queen, if you ask me. And so you've got to find what your competitive edge is. I like to use the word edge. I know your book is competitive advantage, but I like to use edge. Find your competitive edge and lean hard into that to create differentiation, so that you don't look like every other business in your industry. I'm sorry, I just rambled on there.
That's okay. Todd mentions a book. So the book he refers to is called The Inside Advantage by Robert Bloom. It's a big red cover, and it talks about making your business different and standing out and not fighting the proverbial race to the bottom. So that's really one thing it talks about. And the other book, since we're talking about copywriting, which is content, I like to throw out there is Andy Crestodino's book, his handbook that he's thrown out, as Todd shows it up, called Content Chemistry.
I've read every page of it.
So have I. And to me,
just kidding, I haven't.
It's one of the best comprehensive books. It's more a reference guide. It's not I've been through it all, but it's not a book that you would read the average person from start to beginning. And a shout out to Andy and Orbit Media for writing that book, because it's pretty incredible, actually.
Andy, let me say something about Andy. He writes these comprehensive, very tactical, that's what he called it, I think, articles once a week or something like that. And he don't have to. He's like this co-founder, and he said My content manager like put, and so once a week, and I've never seen, right now, I cannot think of a web design company, because that's basically what they are, who puts out better content on the regular than what Orbit Media does.
I would agree
And
with
he's
you.
a heck of a nice guy. And so, I know you've had him on your show, and he used me as a source in an article he wrote, and just solid the earth guy, and they do really good work. And you talked about SEO and AI, and I started to say, and I didn't say this, but he has done some astonishing things using ChatGPT to help his SEO efforts, especially when it comes to content. It's not creating content, but it's making evaluations. So it's fantastic, and he's opened my eyes to some things you can do with something like that.
I'm
He's
thinking
very good. Yeah.
you and I should get Andy on this segment, and the three of us have a bit of a powwow. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Andy is such a
The
giving
the
guy.
good thing about Andy is he's he's a 5-tool player. I mean, he doesn't, all these different copywriting things I talked about at the beginning of this
Yeah.
podcast. He can probably navigate all of them. And so what you see from him is like this really very good content he puts out weekly, but he knows his way around web copywriting too. And they put out some very valuable content on his site. So yeah, and he's a leader in the content marketing world. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I would agree with you. Hey, Todd, thanks for talking about what is copywriting. And we will be back in a couple weeks to talk more copywriting. In the meantime, if you want to find out more about Todd, go to clumpyfight.com, find him on X, find him on LinkedIn. I know Todd has increased his LinkedIn presence big time in the last little while. Follow Todd Jones. He'd be glad to talk to you. Thanks, my friend. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
This show is brought to you by StunningDigitalMarketing.com, your Toronto leader in digital marketing services. Not only do we protect your WordPress website, we can help you with your site, provide social media management for your business, or even do one-on-one consulting. To find out more, go to StunningDigitalMarketing.com. A very special thank you to Todd Jones for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. I love you, and I think about you every day. For more information about Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing experts, go to StunningDigitalMarketing.com or go to StunningDigitalMarketing.info to find out all the great places that Rob Cairns can be found on the web.